Welcome to the New Money Habits podcast, where we talk about how to create a better plan for your money so you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. Here are your hosts, Sarah Jones and Nino Villa.
Welcome back, Budgeteers. Coach Nino Villa here alongside me. It's Sarah Jones, my partner on the airways. Hi, Sarah. How are you and where are you?
Well, hello, Nino. Hey, everyone. We are still in Georgia, on the kind of close to the coast. So if you've listened to a couple of past episodes, I've kind of talked about where we're at. It is raining today, and very humid, but, Nino, I know you're going to love this, and I'm going to use air quotes around love this, but I have seen so many fun little creatures around here lately.
Boy. Oh, boy.
I saw a snake, earlier this morning. My husband does not like snakes. He is not a snake lover at all. And there was one kind of crawling behind our camper this morning. And I literally grabbed my phone and was yelling. I'm like, oh, there's a snake. And he's like, you're seriously not going to go out and take a picture of it, are you? I'm like, yes, of course I am. Like, I have to. It's what I do. So found my shoes and ran out and grabbed a little picture of him. He was too far away by the time I got out, but love taking all the pictures of all my little creature friends around here.
I have no words. I'm rendered speechless. I'm glad you are enjoying the environment around you. Better you than me. All of those things.
Well, and some of them aren't so little. So I will say I've taken some pictures of some big creatures that we've come face to face with. That was a little terrifying as well. But I don't know. It's all part of the journey, right?
That's right. I do recall receiving a picture text from you a couple of weeks ago about the gator. I don't know if they're gators or crocs down there, but whatever they are, he seemed like he was big and very, very nearby.
Yes to both of those. And I snapped a quick picture and then I took off because, I don't want to be one of those people that gets eaten by a wild animal just because she had to get too close, so I know my limits. So yeah. Don't freak out. I stay at a healthy distance, but, those things do happen.
No headlines. All right. No full-time RVer didn't know not to get that close to crocs.
Right. Yep. I kept my distance.
All right. Very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about the difference between being poor and being broke today. I want to ask a question here in a moment that will get us started, but I want our listeners to kind of think about this for just a second. Are you poor or broke? And while you're thinking about that, don't miss out on available the financial insights here on the podcast. Subscribe to the New Money Habit podcast today and unlock a wealth of knowledge to empower your financial journey. Stay up to date with the latest episodes as Sarah and I discuss practical tips, as we host expert guests and have thought-provoking discussions on all things money related. Hit that subscribe button now and join our community of savvy listeners. And while you're in the process of doing things, are you ready to take your financial growth to the next level? Schedule a free discovery call today with either Sarah or myself. And during your personalized session, we'll discuss your specific financial goals. We'll gain clarity on your challenges and your and explore how working with a financial coach can accelerate your progress. So don't miss out on this valuable opportunity. Book your free discovery call now and create the new money habits needed to achieve financial freedom. So I just posed a question to the audience and I said, are you poor or broke? So let's talk about that. What's the difference between being poor and being broke in your estimation?
Well, I can tell you that I lived most of my life being broke, and definitely a mindset. Being broke is a mindset. It has, I will say, nothing to do with the actual amount of money that you make. It's all mindset. And I lived much of my life being very broke.
I love that you use the word mindset, because I cannot agree more with you that I think it is just a mindset. I think lots of people who think that they might be poor will actually find out that they're just broke. In fact, I'm such a numbers nerd and I geek out on this stuff so much that I wanted to share a few numbers with our listeners just so you have an understanding. Okay. So society's definition of poor in the United States. Now, why am I going with society's definition? Because we have some federal government institutions that track things and they kind of make some determinations about what it means to be poor. So the federal minimum wage, I want to start there. For as much as minimum wage is going up in different states, and we hear like $15 an hour in some states, or here in Arizona, I think it's $12.80 an hour nowadays. But as much as states might be changing it, do our listeners know, Sarah, do you know that the federal minimum wage on record is still $7.25 an hour?
I think that's crazy. It's crazy. And a quick little, it hasn't gone up much, Nino, because 20 years ago, federal minimum wage was about $5 an hour.
Yeah.
And so in 20 years, the increase in that is very, very minimal. And I think it's crazy.
Yeah. So here's the even crazier part. Right? If somebody's making $7.25 an hour, and if they were working 40 hours a week full time throughout the entire year, they would make about $15,000. And that is the federal government's poverty line for a single person. So the federal government is not going to step in and help you pay for things like food and housing unless you make less than $15,000 a year. So when we're talking about poor, and when we're talking about somebody who is getting subsidized housing, or they're getting food stamps, or they're getting some sort of government assistance, for somebody single, it's $15,000. And for a family of four, it's only double. It's $30,000. So if you make more than $30,000 a year, by the federal government standards, you are not poor, you're broke. I just wanted to put that out there.
I have so many thoughts on this. So many thoughts. And I want to tell a little bit of a story here, because when I went through my divorce, Nino, and that was, when was that? Almost 20 years ago. It was 19 years ago. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids. I was making about $15 an hour at that time. But I was not a full-time employee. I was considered part-time, so I was only guaranteed 20 hours a week. So I had good health insurance. I'm not going to go into, why I stayed at that job, but I stayed because I was making pretty good money for, 19 years ago. $15 an hour was pretty good. Had good health insurance, which I needed for my children. I did not get child support when I went through my divorce, and it was really hard, really, really hard paying bills. I had a home, so paying my mortgage. I had a car payment. I was lucky if I had $30 a week left over for groceries, for food for me and my kids. And I was like, okay, I need some help. I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to get this stuff paid off, but I could really use some help. And I made too much money to receive even free or reduced lunches for my son at the time. My daughter was an infant still, but my son was in kindergarten. I made too much to get help for free and reduced lunches. I made too much money to get help with my heating and gas bill at my home. Really frustrating. So I can tell you that if you are in that situation, I absolutely know what it feels like to need some help and feel like you're doing everything you can, but you make too much money.
Yeah. That's super frustrating, and that could take me down an entire rabbit hole that I will do my best to stay out of today, but we should do a future episode on when you are just outside of the dollar amounts needed to get any type of subsidies, but you're still doing everything that you can. But today's topic is about the difference between being poor and broke. So it sounds like you were both poor and broke 19 years ago.
For a period of time, yep.
But you also claimed a few moments ago that it's more of a mindset than anything. So how did you get out of where you were?
You know, it really hasn't been up until recently where I really started to dig deeper into money, dig deeper into my relationship with my husband and why we weren't communicating very well. And I use the word broke all the time. I grew up hearing the word "we're broke" all the time. Like that was part of the vocabulary that I heard. And I grew up watching my dad have several businesses and a job, but we were always broke, right? There never was enough. There was never enough money. So I grew up hearing that. And then it took over into my adulthood. And so what really changed it, Nino, was when I decided that I really wanted to help other people with their money because I had some of the skills down. I had the fundamentals of putting numbers down but I had to really dig into that mindset. And because I wanted to work with other people, I had to look at myself first. And what I recognized is I have been living in this broke mindset my entire life because I never defined what enough was. I never learned how to be happy with what I had, while also working to change the situation, right? Just because you're happy,
Content.
I never, and content and just showing gratitude for everything that I had. I didn't do that. It was always wanting more, right? And so there's a lot of things that went into changing the mindset, and it still's ongoing. It still is ongoing. I'm proud to say I no longer live a broke life anymore. But it's taken years to really get through that. And it's a lot of work. It's a journey, a healing journey for me and for a lot of my clients to work through that mindset of feeling broke all the time.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I work almost exclusively with broke people. And that goes from one of my favorite clients that I've talked about on the program before, and that is she made maybe $25,000 or $30,000 a year, right? Which is not based on the numbers I shared just recently. She's very close to that poor. Now she's single, so because she was making more than $15,000, I guess she wasn't poor, but with the incredible discipline that she had, she was able to take even that $25,000, $30,000 that she was making a year, and all of a sudden she wasn't broke. She was able to pay all of her bills. There was a surplus. But what's more interesting to me is how many individuals and couples I work with who make six-figure incomes, 100,000, 125, 175 together, 250. The medical director that I worked with. And these people are broke. These people are like, I don't have a surplus. I'm spending every single dollar that's coming in. And it's because they're living without a plan. So they're broke, but they certainly are not poor. I think many of our listeners would be like, what are you talking about? If I had a $250,000 income every year, I would be able to manage just fine. But except that too often, as the income goes up, so does the lifestyle. And when none of it's in check and when it's unplanned and it just kind of happens, you start to find yourself in a situation where you're broke, even when you have a strong income.
One of my favorite mentors shared this kind of quote with me, and I stand by it, and it really plays into the broke mentality, is that money is an amplifier. So whatever you do really well with money, when you make more of it, you're going to continue to do really well. And money is also an amplifier of all those, I'll call them bad habits, all those things that you're not good with, all the overspending, right? Living outside of your means isn't taken away when you make more money. It's amplified as well. And so that broke mindset, if you are broke at $30,000 a year, you're going to be broke at $250,000 a year, right? And that's why I mentioned at the beginning, it has nothing to do with the amount of money that you're making and how you use that money that you're making that really makes the difference, right?
Yep. And there it is. How you use, manage, behavior, what it is that you do, right? We always talk about habits and how you behave. And so how can our listeners change, one, their mindset and get out of that broke mindset? But more importantly, or maybe equally as important, how can they start to change their behaviors around how they're managing their money so that they get out of not only being in a broke mindset, but they put an end to being broke, period?
Well, I think there's a lot of steps. Number one is putting a plan in place, really sitting down and creating a plan for your money, because that hits kind of the mechanics part of it. I kind of say the magic and the mechanics of money, right? And so that hits the mechanics, the nitty gritty, this is how much you're making and this is how much you're spending, and you can plan that out. And the second piece I would say for a lot of people, what I recommend is start to journal. Start to journal, because this is going to start working on the mindset of it, right? And you can start to identify, what am I really grateful for, right? And so when you're journaling and you're not focusing just on the negative, but okay, what am I really grateful for? What have I been able to accomplish? Use that good stuff, right? Use those good things that you've done, and also be honest and say, okay, now what is enough? Define enough. Define that happiness for yourself, right? And again, this is a process, but those are two things that people can do right off the bat to get going. Create a plan and start to journal.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about the specifics of the journaling. First, start listing out the things that you're grateful for. We mentioned the word kind of in passing a few moments ago, and that word is contentment. There's something to be said for being content. Content is not complacency. So it's not somewhere that like you get to and then you just kind of coast and, you never have a drive to do anything different. That's, but contentment is this place where I'm not going to be defined by my circumstances, that I'm going to find joy, happiness, and peace in where I am. And while I plan for the next thing and like how I'm going to get there, it goes back to the first word that you use, and that's creating a plan, right? Specifically, you were talking about a budget, and yes, income in, outgo, go, and what's my surplus or my deficit, and how do I got to just manage better? But then also part of your plan should be, what am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to achieve it? That goes back to your value statements, right? Is this something that I value? Does it align to my values? And so then putting this plan in place and kind of setting some goals and figuring out, what am I grateful for? What am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to achieve it? Is it because there's just this sense of there isn't enough, or I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses, or whatever that is? Or is it, okay, no, you know what? I'm incredibly grateful and content with what I have. I would like this for these reasons. And then what is the plan to go from A to B?
I love that. And I just want to highlight, because I know you said it, but I want to make sure that our listeners get it. There is nothing wrong with wanting more. There's nothing wrong with wanting more money. There's nothing wrong with wanting a different car. There's nothing wrong with wanting different clothes or to travel. But it doesn't mean that you use that as the excuse, right, for not having a plan for your money. And it doesn't mean that just because you can't do all of that right now that you're broke. It just means that we need to redefine what happiness looks like for us, and really looking at, to your point, why do I want to travel? Like really, really sitting down and thinking about that. What is the purpose of me wanting to travel? And then how can I make that happen? Right? I think those are really powerful questions that we can ask ourselves, is putting this plan, making these goals, this vision, creating this vision for your life. And, I'm going to step out on kind of a limb here and say, with most of the people that I've worked with, they've wanted these things, but they had no idea why they wanted these things, right? That I want this, I want to travel, I want to buy this home, I want to live here, I want, but they didn't know why. And I think some of it comes back to societal, what's kind of thrown in our face, keeping up with the Joneses, really wanting it because somebody else has it. But when we started to identify, what is it that you actually want? Those things changed. And then it started really to change that mindset and thinking, I'm not actually broke. I'm just not spending my money in the areas that are important to me. Yeah. Right. And that goes hand in hand with creating the plan, seeing that vision, and the journaling. And it really comes together, I think, a lot quicker than a lot of people think it does.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off of something you just said as well. And that is the not knowing why they want it. I think oftentimes, maybe all the time, I don't know. I'm not a big philosopher, so I can't say if it's some of the time, all the time, whatever. But we're looking for fulfillment, and sometimes, a lot of times, many times, we're looking for fulfillment in the wrong things, the wrong areas. I'm going to buy that new car. It's going to fulfill me. No, it's not. I'm going to buy that bigger house. It's going to fulfill me. No, it's not. But to your point, when you can figure out why, if you have a growing family and I want a house so that we have individual spaces, but then we also have a space to come together and we have space to host people and bring them to our home because we love to, spend time with others and just kind of pour into other people's lives that way. And now all of a sudden you have a house that can host people and it's got this beautiful backyard and you can bring people over and you're communing and all that. Well, now you're probably getting fulfilled. It wasn't the house that fulfilled you. It was this deeper desire for community. Now, with all that being said, I'm also going to caution our listeners, you don't have to wait until you have these things to be fulfilled in those ways. Just saying. But I think we're looking for fulfillment, and oftentimes we're misguided and we think, I'll be fulfilled if I have this. I'll be fulfilled if I take this trip. I'll be fulfilled.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
No. And I think that comes back to the gratitude piece and the contentment, there was a period of time in my life, I lived in a very small home. We sold that home and got a house that was 3 times the size, right? Now I literally live in a house now that's half the size of my first home, right? So, there you go. But I am more content and more fulfilled now. And it has nothing to do with the things, right? It's, and, to break it down, we look for fulfillment in things a lot of times, and we're chasing. We do a lot of chasing, and with chasing comes a lot of regret, a lot of frustration, a lot of tears, a lot of going in the wrong direction.
Yes. A lot of going in the wrong direction. I don't know that I could say it any better than that. And I don't know that there's anything else to say.
I think I'll just share. I've got one last thought, and I do believe that everybody has a choice here, right? And I'm talking specifically about being broke. I don't know a ton about being poor. And I think that, there are a lot of cultures and a lot of areas that I don't have that experience in. And so I don't know what it's like to live in every area of the United States. So I'm just going to speak specifically on the broke mindset here. But I do believe that all of us have a choice. And in this day and age, you don't have to be broke. It's a mindset, but you can also make more money. You don't have to be okay and content with the amount of money that you're making. If you have other desires and you really want to make more money, you have the ability to do that. Use your skills, right? What are you good at? How can you entertain people? People will pay for all kinds of stuff now, folks, right? And it just comes back to recognizing that you have a choice, that where you're at right now does not mean that you have to stay there. And so if you're feeling broke, take the actions, start your plan, put together a budget, start to journal, start to create your vision for what it is that you really desire. That's your action that you can take today and start to make your future different.
Yeah. I can speak on behalf of the poor. I grew up poor. If anybody would need kind of like proof or metrics of being poor, one, my father, after my parents split, was homeless for a time. He owned a little repair shop that he slept out of. I think that's one metric. Another is I did qualify for free lunch at school because my parents were poor. And I also qualified for Pell Grants my first semester of college because my parents were poor. So at least by the federal government standards, we were poor. My mom was on WIC and received food stamps. We were definitely poor. And to your point about you do not have to stay there. My father did not graduate high school. My mother did not graduate high school. My older sister did not graduate high school. I graduated high school. I don't know why. I don't know what was different about me, whatever. I just kind of felt like, I guess this is what I have to do. And then from there, it was just a little bit different thing here. I made decisions. And then the truth is, for me anyway, then I got saved and I made a whole different bunch of decisions that were less focused about me and more focused about others. And it brought me out of that place. But the point being is wherever you are now is not where you must stay, that you can make decisions that will get you to wherever you want to go. I'm living proof.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And that's some major encouragement for probably a lot of listeners out there, right? That choices, right? You can make a different decision. So I'll just throw it out there. What different decision are each of you going to make today? I think that's a good question to end on. What different decision am I going to make today that's going to change the course of my future?
Thank you for listening to the New Money Habits podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Keeping Up with the Joneses Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our host by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes. Join our growing group of like-minded people on Facebook and follow us on your favorite platform. Music provided by Summer School.